It begins with someone saying that one day all records of humanity disappeared. Art, history, technology, everything. Starting with books and extending to digital records, all the knowledge and information humanity had accumulated since ancient times vanished overnight, and no one was able to discover the cause. When society was on the brink of chaos, a savior appeared for humanity, a system configuring itself for initialization. Thus emerged a mysterious system called Zeus, whose origin and purpose were completely unknown. Zeus created a virtual reality game called Olympus. However, Olympus was not just a game. It was even capable of manufacturing objects in its own way, using a process called substantialization. This ability of Zeus allowed items to be transferred from the game into reality. Because of this, Olympus became a method for maintaining modern civilization. But the boundary between reality and Olympus soon broke. Since then, the world where it became possible to bring items from the game into reality has existed for more than 200 years, ushering in a modern era in which a brilliant civilization flourished. However, a brilliant civilization is not necessarily a good one. It was a world where men in suits stepped on others while asking where they had crawled from, insisting that insects like them should crawl as insects do. In this way, the theory of the spoon classes became deeply rooted in humanity. Due to rankings, influence, or Olympus items, a person's wealth and status became widely recognized. This was not a class system that uplifted society, but one that made the rich even richer and the poor even poorer. It became a world where it was impossible for a great man to be born to poor parents. Juhyuk, was also one of those countless dirt spoons, but it seemed this law would not hold for him. When he was barely 10 years old, he was kidnapped by a mysterious old man who said that what mattered was not the spoon one was born with, but the difference in level and skill. He was then subjected to infernal training in the tutorial area for the next 20 years. The old man claimed that he needed to become an absolute, or something like that. Together with a constellation, an assassin, and the Queen of Death, they decided to become the absolute of this world. Now, returning 20 years into the past, after the Olympus Revolution, humanity received its education within the virtual world. Students had to level up in academies inside Olympus, and upon graduation, they would receive jobs within the Olympus Union and earn money. This was normal. He thought it would be the same for him, but suddenly problems appeared. That old man was there again, staring at him with a wide smile, saying that he had finally found him. Without warning, the old man kidnapped the boy, claiming that he had finally found a talented child and could hardly believe it. He said the boy was truly talented and should rejoice because he would turn him into the strongest man in the world. The boy remembered that he'd been kidnapped by a strange old NPC. This nameless old man was the embodiment of strength. He was forced to become his disciple, and thus his difficult days began. They were extremely painful days, during which he was even forced to consume special medicines. The infernal training began. After 10 years, he asked his master whether he knew that the top-ranked player was only level 89, and whether that was not impressive. The old man did not care at all. He mocked the rankings and called him by his in-game name, Arthur, asking how someone could be called strong while still below level 99. Nero replied that he was still number 1 on the official rankings and no one was above him. But the old man asked whether he did not trust his powerful master and told him not to rely only on what he could see. He warned him to remember that there were things that could not be revealed. Nero wondered if this psychopath was acting up again, but the old man simply told him to believe because he would make him the strongest man in the world. Nero argued that it was not as if he came from a rich family, nor did he have powerful items, so how was that possible? The old man responded by hitting him and ordering him to shut up, saying that levels and attributes were everything. Apparently, he was not training hard enough and would have to train 3 more hours that day. The boy wondered whether he could really trust this man. Every day of his life was filled with unbearable pain. Still, many winters and many springs passed, and time flew without rest. Eventually, 20 years went by. After those 20 years of infernal training, the old man told him that he had done well. Since he had taught him everything he knew, he had no regrets, even if he were to die now. Nero thought that this old man should die already so he could finally leave. He felt it was ridiculous that even now he was treated like a worm in his own home for being a nobody. The training did not end within Olympus alone. Because of that infernal training, he had been beaten the entire time. Honestly, he didn't know if he could endure it anymore, and he wondered when he could simply delete his character. But now it was over. This was the end. He called his master Mora and said that he was like a father to him. He had endured those 20 years as if the old man truly were his father, and now this son could not leave and live in the world without him. He still needed companionship. The old man stared at him and said that was not true. He was still far weaker than him, but he had grown much stronger. In Nero's mind, he just wanted his master to give him a mission already. Normally, NPCs left missions when they died. The boy knelt and begged his master to train him a little more, thinking that after all that hell, he should at least receive a good mission before the old man died. The old man said, "Very well." The boy was overjoyed, thinking he would finally receive a mission. The old man told him not to forget that he was his only disciple and his only successor. Nero thought, yes, and it's because of this damned succession that he trapped me for 20 years. Dev sent him to that place, saying that his future was there. He was not very enthusiastic, but he thanked him for his teachings, saying that he would honor his master for the rest of his life. The old man responded with a sinister chuckle and said that this world would kneel before him. He told him to go now and dominate everyone. When he stood up, he thought that at that moment his master had already passed away and that everything was finally over. He hoped they would never meet again. As he walked away, he thought about how he had spent 20 years with his master. 20 long years of infernal training had finally come to an end. He arrived at the special area of Lena, standing before the teleportation portal, thinking that this was also his new beginning. Excitedly, he said that this hell had finally ended and opened his status window. He remembered how he had almost been beaten countless times for attempting to escape, but now he wanted to see the results of that absurd training. He noticed that his energy was at 99, but in contrast, his luck was negative. Then the system announced that the player had been confirmed. The boy exclaimed in relief, and the system informed him that he had been freed from the restriction curse and was now released from his duty as a successor. The special barrier was removed and the area began unlocking. The system declared that he was now free to leave the special area of Lena. June thought to himself, yes, 20 years, a long 20 years. He bade farewell to Lena and welcomed his new life. However, as soon as he took a step forward, the system announced that he was leaving the special area of Lena and that access was denied. This shocked him deeply. What the hell is this? He wondered. The system reported that abnormal levels had been detected and that the proper procedures had not been followed. An abnormal level evolution method was detected once again. By Zeus's command authority, the system would reset the abnormal level gains. June shouted in disbelief, asking what this meant as he watched his level drop at an absurd speed. He screamed for it to stop, insisting that he did not deserve this. Those levels were the result of his entire life's efforts, yet Zeus's system reduced him to level 1, declaring that the anomaly had been resolved. It added that the stress limit had been exceeded and that remaining logged in for too long could compromise his well-being. After a long while, the boy, now crying, thought that his 20 years had been completely wasted. He deactivated the status window, convincing himself that this was not a dream. Suddenly, he froze and checked again, only to realize that his attributes were still the same. From what he understood, only his level had been reset, while his attributes remained intact. He thought that this was incredible. Normally, a level decrease would come with penalties, such as the loss of skills. Indeed, he could no longer use any attack skills or equip restricted items. He was literally a level 1 player. But then he realized something. What was the downside? Being level 1 meant he could level up more easily. With his current attributes, he could farm monsters efficiently, level up faster, and reinvest points into attributes again. He concluded that this was not bad at all. His life as an unemployed nobody was finally over. This marked the beginning of his true life in the world of Olympus. He took out the map, and after examining it, declared that his first destination would be the beginner village. He thought about how he, Han Yoki, now 26 years old, was years behind everyone else. He activated the return scroll, deciding to go to Urkus. After using the teleportation scroll, he arrived in Urkus and remarked that it had been 20 years since he last stood in this plaza. He had missed it. He looked around at the people, remembered that familiar vendor, and felt the atmosphere of harmony. He had missed all of this. Overwhelmed with emotion, he realized that he had finally returned. Without hesitation, he decided to head straight to the hunting grounds. Approaching the west gate of Urkus, he began walking toward it, but a guard stopped him and asked for his level. The boy replied that he was level 1, showing his player information. His in-game name was Arthur, age 26. The guard frowned and told him he was at the wrong gate. This was the west gate, and it was far too dangerous for a level 1 player. The boy asked if it was restricted area, but the guard said not exactly. However, he strongly recommended that Arthur leave, explaining that he would not even be able to hunt sick rabbits at level 1. Arthur glanced at the rabbit nearby and kept walking. The guard insisted that he should train at the east gate before coming here. Arthur replied calmly that he would be fine. The guard wondered if the boy had even listened, thinking that players did resurrect after death, but this was still reckless behavior. Then, Arthur received a mission. The guard's anxiety was now in progress. Reading the mission description, he learned that the guard at the west gate was watching him with doubt-filled eyes, convinced that the player would die. He needed to relieve the guard's anxiety, and the reward would be 30,000 gold. Arthur thought that the guard was incredibly pessimistic, but since he had received the mission, he decided to put on a little show. The guard continued staring at him, wondering what he was doing. Suddenly, the guard shouted, warning that a rabbit was about to attack. He began running towards Arthur, yelling for him to dodge. But the rabbit, with its massive teeth, lunged at Arthur. Arthur was faster. With a single strike, he obliterated the rabbit, its body bursting apart instantly. More rabbits rushed towards him, but he defeated them all with ease. The guard shouted in disbelief, asking what the hell that was and how it was possible. He ran up to Arthur and asked if he really said he was level 1. Arthur calmly confirmed it and asked if guards couldn't detect player levels. The guard, stunned, said it was hard to believe and wondered what kind of method Arthur had used. Arthur replied cheerfully that it was a trade secret. At that moment, behind them, a massive boar stood ready to attack. The nervous guard shouted that this was the lair of the west gate, and a furious wild boar charged straight at the hero. But Juhyuk didn't seem concerned at all, even as the guard warned him that this beast was on a completely different level and extremely dangerous. To the guard's shock, the hero defeated it effortlessly with one hand. After killing it, he immediately leveled up. The guard stared in disbelief, convinced that Juhyuk was definitely a novice and wondering whether he was dreaming. Just like that, Juhyuk received the rewards for completing Nier's anxiety. He now had 30,015 gold, and 1 Olympus gold equated to 1 unit of real-world currency. He muttered that given the situation, he couldn't invest attribute points anymore, since they were already fixed. However, as long as his attributes remained at 99, he wouldn't worry about it. It wasn't an urgent issue. For now, he decided to hunt in a more advanced hunting field. Thinking that his life had become infinitely better than before, and after being enslaved for 20 years, he was finally receiving his reward, he believed that things would go smoothly from now on. However, after a few days, he became completely desperate, wondering what was going on. A notification appeared, stating that he had participated in an assassination. The chaos system was activated, and an assassin mark would be applied to him. Players would be able to distinguish the assassin mark, and penalties would be imposed upon activation of the chaos system. He thought back to the recent days, recalling how he had been involved in several incidents that led to multiple misunderstandings. NPCs had appeared and attempted to attack him, and he had ended up killing one or two in self-defense. It was as if they were mistaking him for a wanted criminal. He wondered what was wrong with them, but he doubted they would act this way without a reason. The only explanation he could think of was his luck attribute being at -99. Because of his terrible luck, NPCs were convinced that he was a wanted criminal and were now relentlessly trying to kill him by any means necessary. Even now, another NPC attacked him from behind. Juhyuk reacted faster, blocking the strike with a punch, realizing that this must be muscle memory. He had no choice but to fight them to survive. In the midst of all the chaos, he wondered why it had to be the most malicious outcome possible. The system announced that he had killed an NPC and had entered the maximum chaotic stage. The penalties of the maximum chaotic stage were severe. The chance of dropping items upon death increased to 100%. Experience gain was reduced by 90%. He was prohibited from using public institutions. NPC favorability was reduced by 100%. He realized that he had received an overwhelming number of penalties and that he was completely screwed. From that day on, not only NPCs but also players began hunting him. There was only one reason players would pursue someone like this. One of them shouted to call for reinforcements, declaring that he was the notorious serial killer. Juhyuk recalled that under the hero system, which was the opposite of the chaos system, players could become heroes by killing chaotic players. Naturally, they wanted to target someone at maximum chaos like him. They told him that he was cornered and should give up, claiming it would be better if he surrendered obediently. Instead, Juhyuk turned around and unleashed a devastating attack, wiping them all out at once just to survive. He muttered that if he hid for a while, they would not be able to find him. Even so, killing them caused him to level up again. 2 weeks later, he was still in hiding. He thought that being a normal player was truly miserable. He would need to stay hidden for at least a month for the maximum chaotic state to be removed. If he was going to be a villain, then he would at least be a villain who ate well and lived comfortably. From that moment on, he decided to abandon the idea of being a hero. With level 99 attributes, he did not need to worry about food or survival. Still, when he thought about it carefully, the situation was extremely strange. After enduring extreme suffering for 20 years, just when he thought things would finally improve, he was forced into the maximum chaotic state against his will. This had to be Zeus's intention, or perhaps part of a main scenario. Maybe it was some kind of hidden storyline. He felt as if he had jumped from the frying pan into the fire. He had many questions, but the answers came sooner than he expected. The very next day, several people were kneeling before him. Shocked, he asked what the hell was going on. An elder from the Central Valley declared that he had finally seen the descendant of the absolute ruler and that he could now die without regrets. They began praising him and welcoming the return of the absolute ruler of the celestial demons. Juhyuk was completely confused as the system announced the return of an SSS-class absolute ruler, explaining that he had been recognized as the absolute ruler of the celestial demons. His priority objective was to receive recognition from the 12 elders. Juhyuk wondered what kind of SSS-class mission this was. Such missions were legendary. In the 200 years since humanity began playing Olympus, this was the highest class mission ever recorded. In those 2 centuries, SSS-class missions had only appeared 3 times. Every time one occurred, Olympus underwent massive upheaval. Typically, an SSS-class mission involved at least a nation-level scenario. He questioned whether all of this was truly happening to him. The 20 years of infernal training, the maximum chaotic state immediately after leaving Lena, and now these NPCs bowing before him as if they had been waiting all along. It seemed he had truly entered a grand storyline that Zeus had been preparing for the past 20 years. Thus began the tale of 7,000 years of chaos. When the war ended, harmony returned, and the world was divided into 3 forces. The most famous among them was Centinea, which had an absolute ruler named Garcia Mentos, a man who had 14 wives. The 7th wife gave birth to a son named Aractos. Aractos later had a child, whose name varied depending on the pronunciation. That person then gave birth to another, and after that, someone from another land gave birth to yet another, and so it continued. He wondered why this genealogical tree was so long, but he thought it would be rude to skip it, so he continued reading. It went on to say that the supreme ruler of that era, Sultara, rose to power. Sultara consumed demon blood and became stronger and crueler than anyone else. It was said that all the heroes of the world feared Sultara. However, when the rebellion occurred, Sultara was defeated by a honey trap. Even so, he was only mutilated and did not die. After that event, Sultara lived in a cave and gradually recovered his strength. At that point, he realized that his master was a direct descendant of Sultara. He continued reading, and near the end, it stated that if he failed to be recognized as the absolute ruler, he could end up in a very difficult position. He paused, wondering what that meant. What kind of difficult situation was it referring to? If the situation became extreme, it meant that he would be expelled from accessing Pazak. The system then displayed a special benefit known as secret forces and ordered him to subjugate the 12 celestial elders. The command authority over the celestial demons was temporary and would be revoked at the end of the mission. The elders received a relationship attribute for the duration of the mission. The relationship attribute functioned as an alter ego tied to the player. Realizing this, he understood that all he had to do now was meet them. He asked if they were the celestial demon elders. The old man standing in the center answered yes and thanked him sincerely for recognizing them. Juhyuk thought to himself that he had actually not recognized them, he had only seen it in the system. Then he said that his master had sent him to lead the celestial demons and restore the former glory of the ancient celestial heaven on this vast continent. This greatly surprised the old man. Juhyuk noticed that the 7 elders appeared loyal to him, and they all knelt, wishing him a long life. He was told to lead the way now, and the elder from the Central Valley agreed, stating that he had already cut off the heads of the worthless insects surrounding them. Juhyuk realized that this was why the area had been unusually quiet. He began checking his relation status with the elders. Each elder was now recognized as a clan member. The experience the elders gained within a region was shared with him. Because of this, he leveled up multiple times. He was shocked to discover that he had already reached level 9. Normally, according to national standards, when someone enters the academy at 6 to 8 years old, they graduate by around level 20 by the age of 20. If he could apply the same principle here, this might actually work. He asked the old man for his name. The elder replied that his name was Luxu, and he held the position of first elder. Juhyuk said that there was something that needed to be done first. Luxu asked him to explain. Juhyuk stated that he was currently under a special ban. He inherited his master's path, but in this state he could not use any of the abilities his master had granted him. His mind remembered them, but his body did not. Luxu replied that they had already noticed this. Juhyuk told them to trust him, for they are his absolute ruler. He promised them to lead them to a place illuminated by the sun. This deeply moved them. The system displayed a significant increase in loyalty. Then he ordered everyone to move to the designated location. Back at home, his sister approached him and said that his union had apparently completed a major mission. There was a serial killer called Jet Hawk active near SN. Juhyuk realized that his younger sister, Han, was talking to him nervously. He asked if they had identified the man. She replied that he used dual pistols and was around level 40. She had heard that he could defeat a group of 7 people by himself. If someone captured him, they would receive a reward of 3 million as an incentive. Another person had mentioned that the total bounty exceeded 100 million, but only 3 million would be paid immediately. She added that their union still had many advantages, though Juhyuk pointed out that they still did most of the work themselves. Han excitedly said that if she earned the incentive, the barbecue would be on her. Juhyuk noticed that she had dark circles under her eyes recently. She explained that it was because they had been eating less meat. Juhyuk suspected that this was probably because his luck was still at -99. He logged back into Olympus. An elder informed his lord that someone was following him. Juhyuk asked what they should do. The elder replied that the pursuer had not yet been identified and asked for instructions. Juhyuk calmly said that for now, they should wait. He tried to contact Luna, but a system message informed him that Lady Luna was on another continent, and players on different continents could not exchange messages. At that moment, a voice sounded behind him, saying that he had finally been found. The man called him a worthless imitator. Juhyuk turned around and immediately recognized the twin pistols. It was Juhyuk, the wanted criminal. Juhyuk sneered, saying that trash like him dared to imitate his style, and that he would pay for the crime of copying him. Juhyuk realized that the man had obtained information about him in advance through the CA. Despite his high attributes, Juhyuk was still level 40. What variables would arise now? He did not know, but he could not afford to lose during the most important mission of his life. All he had to do was avoid fighting alone. He summoned Luxus, and the old man appeared, saying that he was at his service. Juhyuk wondered where this old man had come from, as he had not been able to detect him. Juhyuk calmly ordered Luxus to kill him. Luxus replied that he understood. Juhyuk scoffed, thinking it was just a useless old man and that he could kill him easily. To his shock, Luxus vanished from his sight. The gunman thought he should have attacked first. The next thing he knew, the world was spinning, his head separated from his body. After killing him, Luxus calmly wiped his blade clean. Juhyuk stood there in complete shock, wondering what kind of monstrous power that was. Juhyuk was supposed to be around level 40, yet the old man killed him as if he were a beginner. Juhyuk could not see Luxus's movements at all. If he had possessed a vision-type skill, he might at least been able to read the flow of Luxus's mana. Luxus, addressing him as his lord, said calmly that this was Juhyuk's head and offered it to him. At that moment, countless system messages appeared, announcing that he had gained experience points. He had defeated an enemy with a level difference of 30 or more while still below level 10. The system checked the heaven-destroying phantom art and congratulated him on receiving enhancement points. In Juhyuk's hands was the head of Juhyuk, a famous chaotic criminal with a bounty of 100 million. He wondered if he was dreaming as a faint smile formed on his face. He praised Luxus for a job well done and thought that everything would finally work out. He had not even been able to find a job because his chaotic status was at the maximum, yet now an NPC had casually earned him $100 million. He told the elders to hunt everything in the surrounding area without complaint, celebrating his glorious return. He decided that he would follow whatever scenario or mission the system gave him and do his best to act like a monarch while earning a fortune. 2 weeks passed. Deep within the forest, Luxus defeated countless monsters, both beasts and undead. Juhyuk leveled up easily and noticed that he had already reached level 13. This pace was unbelievable considering how many years most players took to reach such a level. He needed to reach at least level 40 to properly use the heaven-destroying phantom art. From level 40 onward, things would truly begin. His plan was to form a company that acquired items through leveling and by using the celestial demons. That was what he truly wanted. Since he could no longer get a normal job, starting a business made sense. The real problem now was how to claim the bounty for Juhyuk's head. Back in his room, Juhyuk browsed the forums, searching for the best place to sell high-value items and reading through various comments. However, he realized that he could not use any public institutions due to his maximum chaotic status, and in-game currency was gold coins, not real-world money. At that moment, his sister entered the room and asked what he was doing. Juhyuk said she had arrived at the perfect time. She asked if something was wrong or if he needed money. Juhyuk replied that it was not about that and instead asked her what she would do if she had Juhyuk's head. Confused, she asked what he was talking about. She added that if he really had it, she should give it to her, and if she sold it, she would buy him something nice. Juhyuk told her he would give her the head and they could split the reward in half. She was completely bewildered and asked if he was serious. She reminded him that Juhyuk was level 40, and even if he came back from the dead, Juhyuk should not have been able to kill him. She also mentioned that Juhyuk could not even go to most areas because of his training. Juhyuk calmly replied that he had slipped away for a few days and already killed that bastard. His sister stared at him in shock and said that Juhyuk was supposed to be level 40. How could he possibly have killed him? Juhyuk casually replied that Juhyuk died the moment he was hit because his attributes were level 99. He asked if she had forgotten the screenshot he sent her 10 years ago. Back then, his younger sister had received a picture on her phone showing that he was already level 99, but she hadn't believed it and assumed it was photoshopped. Juck understood, but told her that if she wanted Jethawk's head, she should come to the Lepnin Mountains in Satan, where he would hand it to her. She asked why mountains and why she had to go there. Juck explained that he was currently in maximum chaos. This completely shocked her. At the entrance to the Lepnin Mountains, his sister said she had business inside the mountains. The guards warned her that she would die immediately if she went out there. She replied that it would be fine since her brother had come back alive. The guards shrugged and told her not to blame them if she died. She thought to herself that if that idiot brother of hers was lying, he would definitely die. After 3 hours of walking through the forest, she realized it was unnaturally quiet. Her brother had claimed he cleared out the monsters, but she hadn't believed him. Now she realized that not only were there no monsters, there was no sign of any living creature at all. Suddenly, Juck appeared right behind her and grabbed her shoulder. She screamed in shock and nearly jumped out of her skin. She yelled at him, asking what his problem was, and complained that he had scared her badly. He could have at least made some noise. She wasn't going to kill him. She stared at him closely and asked what that insane energy was. Juck replied that he had already told her he was in maximum chaos. She asked if he had killed an NPC or something. Without further explanation, he handed her Jethawk's head, the one with a bounty of 100 million. She stood there stunned, wondering if she was dreaming. He was really handing her $100 million. She called him amazing. Juck simply told her that since she had it now, she should sell it immediately. Still excited, she asked how he'd managed to do it, unable to believe it. She rushed straight to sell the head. The attendant confirmed the identity of the wanted criminal Jethawk and announced that the mission to kill him had been completed. The reward of $100 million had already been paid. She stood there in disbelief, wondering if it was really real. She thought that with half of it she could buy every variety of her favorite hamburgers. Memories of the past came flooding back, recalling her mother worrying about Juck when he would vomit, saying that he must have eaten something strange in Olympus during his training. Thinking about that made her sad. In the end, she realized that her brother truly had worked hard. She returned to him and handed over his share, giving him $99 million. Juck asked why she gave him $99 million when he had said they would split it evenly. She shook her head and said no, this was his first reward in 20 years. How could she take half of it? Since it was 100 million anyway, she kept only 1 million as a thank you.
He was quite surprised that she actually waited for him, but she left soon after, saying she had only taken the morning off. She told him she would head back now and bring him some hamburgers. Later, they would have dinner with their parents. He was extremely excited and simply told her to return safely. As she left, he thought to himself that he had just earned 99 million. After exchange fees and taxes, he would still have around 80 million WS. He felt thrilled, thinking that this was definitely the mission of his life. And yet, the SSS-rank class mission had not even begun. He was now in a position where he had earned 80 million purely by chance. When he eventually completed the main mission, he had no idea what kind of reward awaited him. He needed to reach level 40 as quickly as possible for the mission to continue. To do that, he had to level up even faster. Every minute mattered. If he wanted to invest in the future, the answer was money. Back at home, he asked his sister to buy some items for him. She was shocked and complained that she had just gotten off work, but he assured her that everything would be fine. He told her he would give her 300,000 per month as an allowance. She countered with 500,000 and he accepted immediately. She then entered her virtual reality capsule. A few hours later, she had purchased several items, including a growth ring, a training necklace, a growth bracelet, a growth anklet, and experience-enhancing earrings. In total, 70 million WS had been spent. Juhyuk muttered that the money he had earned with his own hands for the first time in his life was almost completely gone. His sister, standing behind him, said she did not understand why he had asked her to spend so much money. However, she added that if he was going to keep doing things like this, he should also buy her a teleport point. He agreed immediately and asked how much it cost. She replied that it was 3 million for the location plus 300,000 per use. Juhyuk sighed inwardly, realizing how quickly his money was disappearing. She excitedly reminded him to set all the accessories to invisible mode, since they looked terrible. After she disconnected, he reassured himself that he would earn much more money in the future, so everything was fine. What mattered now was doing what needed to be done. He summoned his elders and announced that it was time to start leveling seriously. The next day, as he walked through the area, Juhyuk wondered if these were the ZF Mountains. A nearby player stared at him, wondering who that bastard was, but then received a system warning and realized that Juhyuk was in maximum chaotic. His companion whispered that he had arrived at the perfect time, that they needed this kind of fame, and that Juhyuk looked weak. His equipment was basic, and they wondered if he had died and respawned there. Their leader said he could not tell where Juhyuk came from. His detection field was small, and he genuinely looked like a beginner. The leader told everyone to prepare for battle against a maximum chaotic player. As Juhyuk walked through the forest, he wondered if there were any monsters around. Suddenly, the system warned him that an external skill was attempting to restrain his group. He wondered how that was possible. Behind him, a mage was shocked, questioning whether Juhyuk was actually resisting a restraint spell. The leader said Juhyuk might be a mage, but judging by his trash equipment, he must have died and dropped his real gear somewhere. Another member commented that this was perfect, since killing one more person would boost their reputation in the hero class. The leader told them to shut up and capture him immediately. He ordered one member to distract Juhyuk so he could not use teleport. The leader and assistant king moved in to attack. The two charged at him. Juhyuk calmly warned them that if they backed down now, he would spare their lives. The leader laughed and said that was nonsense. Juhyuk was just a weak piece of trash. As the leader attacked, Juhyuk asked him what level he was. The leader felt a strange power and wondered if his attack had been reflected. Assistant King charged with a massive hammer, but the strike was repelled, shocking both of them. The leader shouted for Assistant King to attack together. Even the archer found it strange. Juhyuk hadn't lost any HP. Juhyuk observed calmly that the swordsman was at least level 40, judging by his body and age. Akira thought that Juhyuk's armor was terrible and that he had not seen him cast any spells. He suspected that he had already prepared magic in advance and reported this to the leader. The leader asked what he meant. Juhyuk, meanwhile, thought that their attacks didn't even tickle. Since he couldn't use skills, he decided to fight with his fists. He took a basic stance. Akira warned the leader to be careful, believing that Juhyuk was about to use magic and told him to activate anti-magic. With a thunderous punch, Juhyuk knocked the leader down. As he collapsed, he wondered what the hell was that. The system announced that Juhyuk was still in maximum chaotic. The assassin's mark thickened and his crimes worsened. A knight wielding an axe cursed and charged at him, but Juhyuk defeated him with another lightning-fast punch. Once again, the system announced that the assassin's mark had grown thicker. Someone muttered that they thought Juhyuk was a tank, but he was absurdly strong. The archer complained that he didn't even have time to provide support. They asked what they should do. One of them shouted that they should start running because they couldn't handle this guy. The leader ordered a retreat, saying he would not take responsibility for what happened next. The archer ran in fear, realizing that attacking this lunatic was a terrible decision. Juhyuk was no ordinary mage. Before the archer could escape, Juhyuk appeared behind him, faster than he could react. The archer wondered when he had gotten there. Juhyuk smiled and said that they had charged at him, but now they wanted to retreat. The archer asked if that was some kind of teleport, but Juhyuk replied that he had not used teleport on purpose. He was just playing with them. There was only one type of person capable of doing that. The close combat battle mage above level 60, the player hunter Ruin, was defeated. After finishing them all off, our boy finally reached level 16. The system displayed a message stating that he possessed a strong desire not to forgive those who stained his honor. The loyalty of his people had strengthened, the minimum conditions had been met, and the inactive attribute charisma was activated. His charisma increased to 10 points. Juhyuk didn't really understand what that meant, but it seemed fine. Soon after, Luxo appeared. The old man asked what was wrong. Luxo replied that he wanted to show him something and asked if he could follow him right away. Juhyuk wondered what the old man wanted this time. They headed straight for the hideout of the celestial demons. When they arrived, Juhyuk questioned why he had to walk for an entire week and why the hideout was so far away. Luxo had asked him to follow, yet suddenly opened a portal in the middle of the desert. Even so, Juhyuk gained reinforcement points simply from excessive walking. For an entire week, there were no animals or monsters anywhere. He survived with nothing but water. It was extremely exhausting. This was only possible because he had level 99 attributes, but even so, he was nearly at his limit. Eventually, Luxo said that he could see the village. Juhyuk was shocked, thinking that they had finally arrived. Luxo confirmed that this was indeed their hideout. Juhyuk asked if he was sure, and Luxo answered yes. The place looked miserable, and Juhyuk wondered if this was some kind of joke. It seemed his master had caused many problems here as well. The villagers were stunned. They wondered if this was truly the absolute ruler who would save them. Soon, they began cheering and bowing to their savior. At that moment, an old man appeared. It was the prophet K, 163 years old. He brought Juhyuk to his home and began explaining everything. Juhyuk summarized what he heard. Long ago, 12 elders had been created in this hidden region. They had searched for the descendant of the absolute ruler for a very long time. This region had no animals, no monsters, and no fertile land. The people lived in poverty, waiting only for his arrival. The old man confirmed that this was true. Juhyuk asked why they could not gather supplies from outside, but the old man explained that it was impossible. Neither the villagers nor the elders could leave to obtain supplies. Juhyuk realized that the first thing he had to do was prevent the villagers from starving to death. He called Luxo over. Luxo asked for his orders. Juhyuk asked how long these people had survived without him. Luxo answered that it had been no more than 2 weeks. Juhyuk stepped forward, climbed onto a raised stone, and ordered everyone to listen. He said that he understood their hunger and suffering. He had been too busy with his training and could not take care of them before, but from now on, things would be different. He promised to sacrifice everything to protect them. If they could endure just a little longer, everything would change. The system announced that the morale of the celestial demons and NPCs increased greatly. Juhyuk then told Luxo to follow him, explaining that it was easier to move with only 2 people. The remaining elders were ordered to stand guard. He told the old prophet to hurry back and eliminate any monsters they encountered. If monster cores or items dropped, they were to collect everything. Luxo accepted the order. Juhyuk believed he would easily complete this mission, the mission to secure food. 1 week later, after Juhyuk and Luxo departed for the Lepnia Mountains, the old prophet told his lord that he had returned in time. Juhyuk replied confidently that of course he had succeeded. First, he gathered the easiest and fastest supplies. The two stood before several magic bags filled with unknown contents. Juhyuk explained that they would start with the small things. A few days earlier, while walking through the city with her friends, his sister received a message from Juhyuk asking her for a favor. He asked her to prepare food and porridge for 300 people and to come to the Lepnia Mountains, just like last time. She was extremely surprised. She thought the food had been prepared through the central authority. When she met him, she asked why he needed so much food. He said nothing and simply paid her. She was shocked when she saw that the payment was a blue stone. She asked if he had found a sponsor, but he said no. He asked her how she felt about keeping 10%. She agreed to sell it for him, and on her way back was asked to buy 3 teleport portals for him. She sighed and said his luck must have been amazing lately. In reality, the blue stone had been obtained by Luxo. Juhyuk sold it, purchased teleport portals, and set teleport points between the Lepnia Mountains, the Celestial Demon Hideout, and the Celestial Demon Village. This eliminated the massive waste of time caused by walking for an entire week. He declared the result perfect and returned to the village. The 12th elder, Werda, spoke angrily. He claimed that they had neglected the celestial demons for too long and suffered because of it. Now, Juhyuk expected their loyalty simply because he was the successor. Werda called it nonsense and accused Luxo of blindly following him. He warned that if Juhyuk tried to harm the village or lied to them, he would kill him. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed from outside. Werda went to investigate and froze. Before him stood Juhyuk, surrounded by countless pots filled with food. Smiling brightly, Juhyuk announced that their food had arrived. He explained that although he wanted to provide milk and honey, eating rich food after starving could damage their stomachs. For now, they should eat this instead. Werda was stunned, wondering where all this food had come from. The villagers were overwhelmed. It had been so long since they had eaten rice. They immediately began bowing and worshipping their great absolute ruler. In this way, the system announced that the morale of the celestial demons and NPCs had increased greatly. It had been so long since they had eaten rice, they immediately began bowing and worshipping their great absolute ruler. In this way, the system announced that the loyalty of his people had increased once again. He thought to himself that this was exactly what he wanted. He summoned one of the elders and ordered him to distribute the porridge together with Luxo. The two elders bowed deeply to the boy before leaving, and he told them to take good care of everyone. After entering the tent, he reflected on what needed to be done next. Food, clothing, and shelter were all necessities, but for now, food and defense would take priority. Soon after, the 12th elder requested permission to enter. The boy allowed him. When the tent door opened, the elder knelt down emotionally and apologized for his doubts. The system displayed a message stating that he had been recognized by the 12th elder, Werda. The boy thought that this had been surprisingly easy. Werda admitted that even though the boy was their savior, he had still dared to doubt him. The boy was surprised. He thought this mission would take much longer, yet he had already made significant progress. Feeling pleased, he stepped forward, placed his hands on Werda's shoulders, and spoke calmly. He said that he still had many limitations on his abilities. He would understand if Werda said that he could not fully trust him, because he would feel the same in his position. However, since Werda had chosen to trust him, he would accept that faith and carry it with unwavering resolve. Werda was deeply moved and apologized once again for his disloyalty. The system then displayed another message stating that the 12th elder, Werda, had fully recognized him as his savior. As long as this relationship continued without betrayal, the benefits would be enormous. Internally, the boy thought that this man was a complete idiot who had been fooled far too easily. He had now reached level 19 and gained an attribute point. He planned to allocate it later. Luxo warned that further actions might attract the Empire's attention. If they needed to leave now, this would be the perfect time, especially since he possessed strong stealth abilities. In the Lepnia Mountains, a gigantic bear suddenly attacked the boy and his elder. Juhyuk remarked that he had never seen such a creature before and decided to call it a giant bear. Werda asked if he should kill it, but Juhyuk refused. He said he could handle it himself. He estimated the giant bear's level to be around 40, a monster that normally required a party of 6 to defeat. Since he had already defeated much stronger enemies alone, this would be no problem. The giant bear charged at him, but he dodged easily, leaping onto a tree. Thinking that this creature was nothing to him, he jumped down and punched the bear in the head, killing him instantly. The system announced that he gained 20,000 experience points. Werda exclaimed that this was truly his lord, but Juhyuk replied that he expected the bear to survive at least one hit. It was much weaker than he had imagined. He then invited Werda to enter the Adamian dungeon. Werda agreed. After several days of travel, they finally arrived at the dungeon entrance. Werda said he could sense many entities inside. Juhyuk explained that the Adamian dungeon was a beginner dungeon near Ercus with moderate difficulty. Students and instructors from the academy often trained there because completing the dungeon granted attribute points. Juhyuk thought back to how he had defeated a giant bear with a single punch and wondered how strong the instructors of the Grand Union really were. He ordered Werda to follow him using stealth, and Werda bowed and obeyed. Inside the dungeon's safe zone, two men were walking and chatting nervously. One of them said they hoped they would succeed this time. Suddenly, they noticed an aura of chaos. When they saw it clearly, they screamed in fear and called for their instructor, shouting that a chaotic player had appeared. The instructor asked if they were serious. He wondered who this fearless idiot was. The scene shifted to deeper in the forest, where the boy had been hunting monsters alone. He wondered why nothing was dropping. After checking, he realized that items did not drop when he personally landed the killing blow. He opened his attribute panel and saw that his drop rate was -99. This absurdly bad luck annoyed him. He considered letting the elders deal the final blows, but that would draw too much attention. Inside a cave, an instructor approached him and demanded to know what he was doing there. The boy recalled the Central Authority's warnings that all instructors of the Grand Union were above level 40 and extremely dangerous. The instructor repeated his question, but the boy ignored him and asked why the man was speaking so arrogantly. The instructor claimed that he had seen many people like him before. If he left now, he would spare his life. After checking his status, the instructor sneered, seeing that he was only level 19 and wearing no proper equipment. The instructor identified him as a trash player named Arthur, someone who killed students to steal and sell their dropped items. His chaos level was maxed out. Capturing him would even grant a hero title. Confidently, the instructor declared that even competent trash like him had started targeting students. The boy asked what he was talking about and told him to mind his own business. He said he was only there to complete the dungeon. The instructor laughed, saying there was no way someone like him could do that. He told the others not to worry and to stay behind him. The students whispered that he truly was an instructor of the Holy Alliance. Angered, the boy thought that today he might finally learn how strong the Holy Alliance really was. He repeated that he would leave after completing the dungeon. He had already said this many times. The instructor accused him of bluffing and drew his sword. Juhyuk replied that he had no intention of harming students like a loser. He would leave after completing the dungeon, just as he said. Ignoring his words, the instructor activated his skill and cursed him for his arrogance, charging forward to attack. Juhyuk sighed and said that he had already warned him. This was his final warning. The instructor struck him, mocking him as worthless, but quickly realized that at the very least, the boy possessed a strange and frightening ability. The boy stared at him angrily and asked if that was all he had. The instructor, now terrified, realized that the boy was not just a novice and that there was something seriously wrong about him. He began calling for reinforcements, shouting that a level 19 maximum chaos player was inside the dungeon and that unlike others, he possessed a strange and extremely dangerous ability.
To bother him. At that moment, he said it was his final warning. Then he struck the instructor with an extremely powerful punch. The instructor wondered what kind of power that was and immediately realized that he needed to call for reinforcements. The impact caused a massive explosion, throwing the students backward. After the attack ended, they began asking where the instructor was and whether he had really died. It seemed that the other students had also been caught in the blast. Our protagonist, furious, asked if they wanted to fight him as well. The students quickly replied that they did not. He said that was a good choice and told them to complete their missions properly and grow into respectable people while wondering whether he was truly leaving this place. A short time later, he reflected that, even so, he never wanted to hurt the students and felt bad about it. After walking for a while, he looked up and said that this must be the defensive fortress located in the middle of the dungeon. According to the book, he needed to destroy the fortress first before entering the final stage and completing the dungeon. Since he would not gain any items from killing monsters anyway, he decided to destroy the fortress immediately. The system announced that the defensive fortress was attacking the player and that the monsters had become enraged. He ignored the skeletons and thought that 10 strikes should be enough to destroy it. He charged a powerful blow and punched the tower, causing cracks to spread across it. With his very first punch, a hole opened up and the tower completely collapsed. He ran away, muttering that defensive fortresses were not supposed to break that easily. Observers questioned whether that was really the defensive fortress he was supposed to destroy. Still, it was good that it ended quickly. Now he just wanted to finish everything as fast as possible. After some time, several people arrived at the location and saw that the defensive fortress had been destroyed. They asked what had happened and whether it had really fallen. They could not believe that a level 19 player had done this. They did not understand how he managed to destroy it so quickly without even touching the skeleton soldiers. They speculated that he might have used a unique item. Then the system appeared and made an announcement, congratulating him and declaring that the adamantium dungeon had been completed. Everyone was shocked, saying that such a thing was impossible. Back with our protagonist, he wondered why there were so many skeletons there. It would be extremely difficult for a true level 19 player to get through that area. This must be the final phase of the dungeon, with a gigantic crystal right in front of him. He said that now he wanted to see if the final stage lived up to its name. Someone asked whether it would break with just one attack. He charged his attack and punched the crystal. The system announced that the shield of the final stage had been destroyed. The protagonist, slightly disappointed, said that the shield had been completely shattered. He wondered what kind of useless shield that was. He knew that the other instructors would now chase after him, so he needed to leave quickly and finish everything. He delivered another strike, and the system congratulated him once again for completing the Adamantian dungeon. Stat points were awarded as a reward for clearing the dungeon. He commented that this dungeon was low-level and extremely weak. The system then asked if he wanted to use his stat points, and he finally reached level 20. He said that now he could go to the dark field. He thought the instructors would come to stop him, but they still had not appeared. He wondered if they were waiting for him at the dungeon entrance, and honestly, that might be better. He questioned how many people would be waiting for him, believing that he could fight 5 at once. He hoped they would at least be level 50. When he exited the dungeon, he was confronted by several instructors, more than he expected. A woman at the front told the others to listen carefully. The protagonist asked what she was talking about and whether she had seen his invisibility skill. She said she had not. One instructor stated that he knew exactly what he wanted and hoped they would not have a pointless battle there. The protagonist realized that they were letting him go. If a fight broke out, innocent students would end up dying, and attacking defenseless people was something he despised. In the end, the leader said they would let him go this time, as they also did not want a meaningless death. The protagonist said he understood and explained that he never wanted to fight in the first place. He apologized for the trouble and walked past them, thinking that heading to the dark field was now his top priority. Behind him, someone spoke to Instructor Azargal, saying that it was truly a relief. Thanks to him, they had managed to proceed without injuries. Azargal replied it was nothing, but reminded them not to forget that Instructor Luther and the innocent students had died when that man entered the dungeon. He had approached them deliberately. Azargal recalled explaining that the dungeon had been cleared far too quickly, suggesting that the man had other forces supporting him. There were many children they needed to protect, and persuading him to leave was the best option. They would return to the dungeon's starting point. Azargal believed that his forces were hidden somewhere nearby, and that they would have targeted the students if a battle had occurred. An instructor beside him wondered what kind of bastard that man was. Azargal said he did not know, but based on the dark mana he sensed, he was certain that he was a max-level chaotic player. He wondered if there was a chance it was Rafid, but the others dismissed the idea, saying Rafid was level 50. Elsewhere, another player was using Claw of Death to kill others. People screamed that he was a max-level chaotic player and that he would surely die one day. The smiling man was Hudiel, a named max-level chaotic player. He said he would make good use of the items they dropped, noting that farming items was extremely profitable. However, he had noticed that Ink, who had never crossed his path before, was now hunting him. He had seen many comments lately saying that someone resembling him had been spotted in various places. He wondered which max-level chaotic player was impersonating him. He had also heard that this person caused chaos at the Alliance some time ago. If things went wrong, he could be exposed to the Grand Coalition, and being placed on their blacklist is essentially a death sentence. Before the situation became problematic, he decided it would be safer to catch that rat and hand him up as soon as possible. Meanwhile, in the Celestial Demon Village, our protagonist spoke as they prepared to head towards a location where monsters gathered in large numbers. This time, he asked whether there was anyone among the elders who specialized in ritual magic. Lux said that if he wanted someone skilled in ritual magic, then such a person did exist. Right beside him, an elder stepped forward and said that he was most confident in ritual magic. Our protagonist asked if he was serious and whether he would come along this time. They had just met him after all. The elder, wearing a mysterious smile, replied that he would. Our protagonist suddenly remembered that Sarah's birthday was coming up soon and that he needed to fulfill his role as her guardian this time. Now, in the dark field, many players had gathered, and the system announced that the monster respawn would be in 10 minutes. Juhyuk thought that it would happen very soon. He called Zeta and asked if he was ready. Zeta replied that he was, and that he would obey his master's orders again and again, cutting bones and stripping flesh. This was Zeta, the executioner. He excitedly declared that he would burn all the trash that crossed his master's path with hellfire and tear their limbs apart. Our hero responded calmly, though he wondered what was wrong with him and why this old man was so terrifying. Still, he explained the plan. They would massacre all players who approached them, kill the monsters, collect the blue gems, and then escape slowly using teleportation. Meanwhile, the surrounding players stared at them, sensing the overwhelming aura of a max-level chaotic being, believing this was their chance to become heroes.
Our protagonist asked Zeta if he knew why he had brought him along. He reminded him that he claimed to be skilled in ritual magic and wanted him to prove it. The psychopathic Zeta replied enthusiastically that he would never disappoint him. He wished his master a prosperous future and activated a massive area spell in the sky, calling forth an evil god. A gigantic, shadowy being descended from the heavens, and Zeta ordered it to annihilate anyone who stood in his master's way. The enormous demon began slaughtering the other players, who fled while screaming and begging for mercy. Our protagonist remarked that Zeta was truly impressive. However, the system displayed a warning. The mark of the assassin had darkened, sin had become more apparent, and his notoriety was spreading across the continent. Surrounded by an immense aura, our hero wondered what was happening. The system informed him that he had ascended as the saint of assassination. It explained that a chaotic player becomes an assassin after surpassing a certain level of notoriety. When an assassin fights someone with the hero title, their damage and defense are weakened, and their resistance to divine abilities is reduced. Upon death, resurrection time increases to 240 hours, and the drop rate of carried items becomes 100%. As the governor of the celestial demons, he was surprised and unsure whether this would work out. Still, the system showed that his charisma had increased, along with the loyalty of the celestial demons. Watching Zeta slaughter the other players, he decided to deal with that later and focus on clearing the area first. Players began screaming for reinforcements, calling those two true monsters. Our protagonist asked whether that was enough already, and Zeta replied that it was. At that moment, the system announced the appearance of the chaotic bull, followed by several bulls charging toward them. Our hero asked whether Zeta could handle it. The old Zeta confidently said yes and vowed to tear that herd apart. Our protagonist praised him and charged forward himself, hoping the monsters would not die in a single hit. He punched one directly in the face, killing it instantly. He received 18,000 gold and remarked that it was as expected. One hit was all it took. With no other choice, he began collecting drops from the monsters the others were killing. He wondered where he could earn more gold and continued slaughtering monsters while hiding among the trees. Two players observing from afar discussed the situation. One said the man was insane, while the other remarked that he was methodical. His companion argued that aside from the swordsman, the other must be a close-range mage. Judging by the damage output, his offensive abilities are impressive. The first player questioned how he could be a mage, since he had not moved at all when attacked by a group. The other concluded that he must be at least level 50. In the sky, Zeta declared that this was the glory of his future lord and charged forward, unleashing endless lightning that wiped out all the monsters in a single strike. Our protagonist commented that it was a bit too flashy, but the system showed that he had leveled up. He instructed Zeta to collect the blue stones once his skill finished charging. Zeta excitedly agreed. At that moment, they obtained 7 blue stones. Our hero noted how fast this was, far beyond what others could imagine. Suddenly, the system announced the appearance of the boss. Our protagonist decided that at this pace, it would be better to clear the area quickly and leave. The two players hiding in the back wondered if that was truly the dungeon boss. It appeared to be the chaotic Bull King, a massive bull preparing to face our protagonist. He told Zeta to eliminate the smaller enemies and collect the drops. Observing the giant bull, he noted that it was stronger than usual and as a field boss should drop at least 20 blue stones. He prayed that it would survive at least one hit. Suddenly, someone grabbed him and whispered urgently that powerful people were approaching.
Our protagonist frowned, realizing that he was close to finishing the boss, but it was already time for them to arrive. He was tired of encountering them like this. He decided to retreat for now, since he was not yet strong enough and would only be humiliated. Still, he vowed to restore the glory of the celestial demons across the continent, which filled him with excitement. Today's gains amounted to over 2 levels and 11 blue stones. Back home, he realized there had been no announcement of a new monster. The Black Chaotic Bull King was not a creature that had existed before. This must have been the effect of his luck stat. He didn't know whether it was a good or bad sign, but if that beast had managed to endure even one of his attacks, he would have earned a massive amount of blue stones. He began reading the forum and saw players saying that a dungeon raid had taken place today and that it had been extremely difficult. Black skeletons had appeared out of nowhere, and a level 19 player had been unable to escape. A gigantic black bear had also suddenly appeared in the territory of the giant bear. Someone questioned the pattern behind these changes. Sarah wondered if these events were happening in places he had recently visited, and people asked whether it might somehow be his fault. Another message appeared asking if anyone had seen the new monster in the Black Desert. Juhyuk searched the posts and realized they were talking about him. The messages said that a max-level chaotic player had wiped out chaotic instructors and fled after encountering the Black Chaotic Minotaur. After that, high-level players hunted the creature down. The Black Chaotic Minotaur dropped 3 bags of blue stones, each containing 30 blue stones. This made our protagonist furious. He realized he had just lost a massive amount of money. 90 blue stones were almost 450 million won. That much wealth was right in front of him, yet he lost it due to his terrible luck. In the end, he only obtained 11 blue stones, worth about 5.5 million euros from today's hunt. On top of that, he had spent around 36 million euros on food for the celestial demons for 3 days. After deducting taxes and expenses, he was left with only 15 million euros, which wasn't even enough to buy a birthday gift for Sarah. Honestly, with his current attributes, he couldn't afford a house or a car. His level was still too low. There were many areas he couldn't enter, and most of his abilities were restricted by heavy penalties. Furious, he thought that now that things had come this far, he had no choice but to grind like a madman and start over again. Elsewhere, a leader asked his assistant whether the difficulty level had increased again. The assistant confirmed that it had. The leader then asked whether a black chaotic bull truly appeared. The assistant replied that it had, and that it was a monster whose abilities had increased dramatically. It was no longer a normal monster. The leader ordered them to continue the hunt as usual and to increase the number of personnel involved, stating that they had plenty of substitute users available. This man was Jung-woo, the director of the union. The assistant acknowledged his orders. Jung-woo added one more thing. If that max-level chaotic player who is interfering with our allies truly exists, then he must be identified. He ordered his assistant to gather information as quickly as possible and determine whether he really came from Loom Pendal. They needed to show what happens when someone wanders alone.
3 weeks later, our protagonist leveled up again and happily noted that he had finally reached level 29. Lux appeared, expressing concern that his body might be exhausted after 3 weeks of non-stop marching. Our hero thanked him for his concern and said he was fine, asking him not to worry. Lux looked at him sadly, but Juhyuk said that even with the limitations of his body, he could not afford to be weak. He wanted to show them the beauty of this world and reach the day when everyone would kneel before the celestial demons. To achieve that, he could not rest and would continue moving forward day after day. He asked Lux not to worry and to simply support him, which deeply moved Lux, who vowed to assist his lord until death. Nasaria thought that this was exactly what he wanted. He had to take care of everything himself: his apartment, his imported car, and his goal of owning his own house. Just then, he received a message and hoped it was from Sarah. Reading it, he saw that his sister asked whether he had received it as well, the mission she had obtained. Apparently, missions like this were appearing all over the world. He wondered what she meant by the mission of the 7th constellation. A system message from Yuki explained it. A challenge had appeared for players to become one of the 7 constellations. They had to annihilate an evil group and become a constellation that protected the peace of the continent. 7 constellations needed to unite and confront a growing evil that threatened to devour the entire continent. To oppose this escalating threat, the 7 constellations had to be formed as soon as possible. Our protagonist wondered what this evil group was supposed to be. It did not sound good, and perhaps they were referring to him. On the forums, countless messages appeared asking who the 7 constellations were and who belonged to the so-called evil group. Back at home, CA remarked that people were going crazy over it. Our protagonist said he knew, but wondered why everyone was overthinking it so much. He wasn't even sure what this secret class truly was. However, if it was tied to Olympus's main storyline, the power it offered must be beyond imagination. CA asked whether he intended to challenge the mission of the 7 constellations. He replied that he could not. As a max-level chaotic player, there was no NPC who would give him the mission. He asked if she wanted to try, but she said she wasn't sure and didn't think she had enough time. She was busy with union work, and only rankers with plenty of free time or independent players would be able to attempt it. He concluded that the hunting grounds he frequented became more difficult, and that the mission was likely identifying him and the celestial demons as absolute evil in order to progress the storyline. In the worst-case scenario, all 7 constellations with secret classes would come after him at once. His goal had been to live a calm, ordinary life, but if that was no longer possible, he would face serious trouble. No matter what happened, he had to become stronger. Once again, he logged into Olympus. To everyone's shock, he announced that he would leave alone this time. Everyone objected, saying it was too dangerous and that they needed to protect him. Juhyuk replied that he understood their loyalty, but based on the information he had gathered, the Herpes Empire had detected his movements. In times like these, caution was necessary. He would go alone this time, deeply moving them by showing his concern for everyone. As our protagonist thought, now that the mention of the constellations had been triggered, bringing the elders would activate the empire. He left the village and instructed them to take care of it in his absence. He thought that as soon as possible, he needed to be acknowledged by the other elders to gain more support. Fortunately, Red joined him quickly, so he only needed 4 more elders on his side, and the food problem would be solved somehow. Then he could begin addressing the housing issue, but he was already spending too much, and there was little he could do about it. It cost 300,000 gold to build a single house. All he could do now was level up like a madman. He needed to reach level 40 as fast as possible. Only then could he use the heaven-destroying phantom art. After that, he could continue following the map his master left behind and complete the remaining missions. Perhaps then he would find a way to solve his problems. Of course, he could not obtain items above the Mazu rank for now, but this is the only thing he could do. He would kill monsters relentlessly and raise his level to prepare for the future. Suddenly, 3 gigantic wolves charged at him. He remarked that, above all else, he could relax while beating monsters. At that moment, the system announced that a new skill had been created: Powerful Fist. He wondered what kind of skill it was and what it did. Upon reading the description, he learned that the skill contained the caster's will and desires. When a powerful desire was imbued into his fist, he could deal direct damage to enemies using only his bare hands. The damage reduction ranged from 0% to 100%. However, Powerful Fist could only be used while he was unarmed. This left him extremely excited. Finally, he had a damage reduction skill, which meant he could start farming items properly. He just needed to let others land the finishing blow. He thought it was great and decided to head back home. However, to his surprise, someone appeared behind him and said that he had finally found him, and it was definitely him. Our protagonist replied that he felt like something similar had happened before. A hooded man approached him and asked whether he knew how many problems he had caused him. He had been blamed for things he never did, and no one listened to his explanations. He was talking about the bastards from the Union. This man was Runfidel, the player hunter.
Our protagonist didn't recognize him and asked who he was. While observing him, he thought that his aura radiated malicious energy. He must be a max-level chaotic player with good equipment. Runfidel asked whether he truly didn't recognize him and whether he even had a conscience as a human being. Our protagonist replied that he genuinely didn't know him and asked if that was supposed to be funny. This only made Runfidel angrier as he insulted him and called him trash. He introduced himself as Rufendel, the one he was impersonating. He had come to hunt him down and deliver him to the Union's bastards. Runfidel asked if he now understood his situation. He sounded as if he expected him to kneel and beg forgiveness, but said he still had to pay for impersonating him. He asked if he was scared, and said if he surrendered, he would beat him a few times but would not kill him. Then he would have to follow him to the Union and apologize for what he had done. Our protagonist told him to stop wasting time and simply asked if they could fight already. This made Runfidel even angrier. He said he didn't want to do this to a fellow max-level chaotic player and attacked instantly, warning him not to die from a single blow. To his surprise, our protagonist wondered if this truly was the player Hunter Humphdon's main ability, since it only dealt 37 damage to him. Still, he thought that a level 50 player was indeed different from a level 41. He activated Powerful Fist and decided to test it with 90% damage reduction. Runfidel began to wonder if he truly possessed a special ability. It must be true that he killed the Union's director with a single blow. However, if his skill is that strong, it should have a long casting time and a high risk. To his surprise, our protagonist suddenly appeared right in front of him and punched him. Runfidel managed to teleport away just in time. Our protagonist wondered if he had missed, but then noticed that Runfidel's barrier had shattered. Runfidel claimed that he was only delayed for a moment. Our hero replied that it was unfortunate, but he had failed to land a precise hit. Runfidel, now excited, said that since he was talking, he must have been trying to buy time for his skill's cooldown. Normally, in PvP, if someone had a skill ready, they would use it immediately. He teleported again, claiming that if the attack landed, it would cause serious trouble. But now that his opponent was on the defensive due to the cooldown, he could defeat him easily.
To his shock, he was punched straight in the face and sent flying. Once again, several of his items shattered and his defense was nearly completely destroyed. He thought that this brat was smarter than he had expected. The first punch had been bait, and the second was the real attack. However, seeing that his opponent did not look satisfied meant things had not gone as planned. Our protagonist thought that Rufindel's teleport was extremely annoying. If only he could use Mind's Eye, which he could learn at level 55, things would be much easier. At that moment, Rufindel declared that this would be the final blow and that he would finish him now, as he needed to take him to the Union. He ordered him not to die and activated Vital Strike. Our protagonist recalled hearing that Rufindel had a final skill called Vital Strike. Judging by his stance, this was likely his trump card. He prepared himself for the clash as Rufindel shouted that it seemed he had no more skills to use, but it was already too late. The two charged at each other, exchanging punches and causing a massive explosion in the forest. After the impact, our protagonist stood there, observing calmly. Rufindel was certain he had landed the hit, yet his opponent was completely fine. He wondered what kind of monster he was facing. Meanwhile, our protagonist thought that it seemed Rufindel had truly died, and Rufindel, in his invisible soul form, thought that this brat must be some kind of special class martial artist. Our protagonist wondered whether he was pretending to be dead. All defensive spells had shattered with a single blow. How was that even possible? Why had Rufindel attacked him in the first place? When the defenses broke, he had assumed Rufindel was stronger than him, yet Vital Strike had not even taken 10% of his life. He understood that the damage being low made sense, but attacking him after all the barriers had been broken did not. What kind of max-level chaotic player did not drop items? This left Rufindel stunned as well. Wait, did he really not drop anything? Our hero said that max-level chaotic players had a 100% chance to drop items, so why was there nothing? From what he could see, all of Rufindel's equipment had shattered. Rufindel spat blood in shock, shouting that his items were worth thousands of gold. Our protagonist replied that there was nothing he could do. If everything was already broken, there was nothing left to drop. He then thought that in the end, fighting a level 50 opponent was not that difficult, and it should be enough for him to enter high-level hunting grounds. With that, he leapt into the sky and left. Below him, Rufendell cried in rage, screaming that he was a damn scammer and that he would kill him one day, no matter what. At that moment, the Soulbind skill was activated. The system announced that Rufendell was now being restrained by the Soulbind skill. Rufendell wondered what the hell this was. Suddenly, someone appeared behind him and said that he was a good ingredient. The hooded figure said he had obtained an excellent corpse and that today was his lucky day. Rufendell asked who he was and what he was doing to him. The hooded man replied that it would have been better if he had gotten his hands on the other one as well, but this would be enough. Just like that, Rufendell was brought back to life. He asked what was happening, and the system informed him that from now on he was eternally bound by these restrictions unless he managed to escape them. The hooded man then ordered him to do 10 push-ups. Rufendell wondered what nonsense he was talking about and why he should do that. However, when he disobeyed, he was shocked by pain and immediately began doing the push-ups. The hooded man warned him that it would be better to listen if he did not want to get hurt. Rufendell, terrified, thought that he had never heard of such a skill before. It might be a secret class, something similar to a necromancer. Judging by the way he spoke, the man sounded young, and Rufendell thought he might be able to use him if he could convince him. He called him Master and said that the Damned One earlier wanted his body as well. Excited, he said he would help him obtain that body. Back on Earth, the two went straight to WC Donuts. His sister asked if he was really going to buy hamburgers for her whenever she wanted. He said yes. She asked if she could get 2, and he agreed. Then she asked for 3, and he said she could get as many as she wanted. She became very excited and happily ate the 3 hamburgers he bought her. Meanwhile, he thought that while he was working hard in Olympus to feed the celestial demons, giving Sia a hamburger was still easy. She asked her brother why he had been so nice to her lately. He used to argue with her, saying she could only order 1 hamburger, and she asked where he had gotten money recently. He simply said that he had a favor to ask. She asked if he needed her to buy something for him, but he told her that what he was about to say was not a joke and that she should listen carefully. She asked why he suddenly became so serious and whether he was going to take her hamburger. He told her that was not it. He explained that he had 0 luck. It wasn't just with monsters. Because he was a max-level chaotic player, he couldn't obtain items normally. Some NPCs were trying to help him, but it was difficult to rely on them right now. It would be easier to start raising a pet under the current circumstances. What he wanted to ask was whether she would like to work with him. She spat out her food in shock and asked if he was serious, saying that no one did things like that in this generation. He said it was not what she was thinking, but she replied that even if he had information or funds, it would be easy to be robbed by the Union. Recently, black monsters had started, and the market was in terrible condition. She was about to be promoted soon, so she didn't need to worry about housing or money. She told him to think carefully. He said he understood, but he still wanted to make his offer. She asked what his plan was, saying that she at least wanted to hear it. Meanwhile, in the Union's meeting room, someone reported that several instructors had died in the wilderness overnight. The max-level chaotic player claimed he would not kill anyone unless they fought him. The Union leaders said that this is why they made an announcement, to force the chaotic player to meet someone without items. The director said that he believed the max-level chaotic player was not Rufendell. He told them to look at the video they had obtained a few days ago. It showed the chaotic player fighting Rufendell. The Union leader said that it was indeed a very good reporting. Rufendell made the wrong choice. His magical defenses broke, yet he still attacked without thinking twice. After analyzing the video, they concluded that the chaotic player was a high-level close-range martial artist. It appeared to be young, and they suspected he had a secret class. It also seemed that he could not fully control his strength due to his youth. While gathering information, they received a mission from a noble NPC. Luther asked what the mission was about. The directors said they needed to capture someone named Hondatarian. The nobles currently believe that Hondatarian is the max-level chaotic player, and this is his photograph. The Union leader said that the man in the photo looked completely different from the one in the video. The director replied that this was exactly the point. He had confirmed with the nobles, and as a result, the system was now detecting the max-level chaotic player as Handatian. If they killed the chaotic player, the mission would be completed. He asked whether it would not be better to kill someone they had information on rather than a complete unknown. The leader replied that it did not matter, as long as they gained points. He asked how many people they would need, and the director said that around 30 should be enough. Even the weakest members of the Union, the so-called meat shields, would be sufficient to help kill the max-level chaotic player. I think it is fair to pay 100,000 to those who die and 3 million to those who contribute the most. The girl beside him spoke up, saying, 100,000 for the dead and 3 million as an incentive? Do you really think that is enough? Do you think people will risk their lives like that? Death may only happen in Olympus, but the pain is still real. The director replied that they had contribution points, and since their members were loyal, he was sure they would give it their all. He asked whether he did not think the younger members should work for gold. The old leader nodded and said yes, he also believed that 3 million was enough. The director then added that the target's head was worth 700 million euros. He could keep 200 million, while 100 million would go to each of the 3 director tables. The rest could be divided for payments. The director said that sounded fine, and that he would proceed accordingly. In his mind, he thought that 3 million was more than enough, and that he did not care whether his members lived or died. As long as he made money, everything was fine. Now, in the Leipan mountain range, Armando Juhyuk appeared right behind him. He asked whether she had arrived and if she had done everything he asked. She said yes, everything was there. She asked if it was enough and mentioned that beginner-level common magic was far less effective than the spells used by mages. Moreover, he could not learn properly while in the middle of a class change. With his level and abilities, he should have already changed classes. He asked her whether she had ever heard the saying, even a blade of grass can become an excellent sword if wielded by a master. She said she had never heard that before. He explained that for someone with formidable attributes, even a basic attack could become lethal. With that, he learned the light spell and the fireball spell. He said that becoming a man who only throws punches would be a waste. He then began learning several other spells. She, very worried, asked if he still hadn't changed classes. He said I had already explained that. She replied that she couldn't believe he still hadn't changed classes given his abilities, and questioned whether that really made sense. She said she had even quit her job because she believed in him, yet he was still unemployed, and she barely recognized him anymore. She told him he had better take responsibility for her because she had practically made a gamble on him. He said he knew, and that was why he was extremely grateful. He declared that together they would raise the name of the Ron family. He added that since he had never used magic with his attributes before, he should start with basic heal. She agreed, saying this would be an experiment, but it was still just basic magic, and the effect should be insignificant. He said he wanted to see for himself. Activating basic heal, he surprised his sister when a bright light enveloped her. She asked if it was already over and whether she could drink a potion now. He told her no and asked her to look at her HP bar. When she did, she was instantly shocked and asked, "What the hell is this?" He said since healing worked so well, he would now give her some attack and defense buffs. He told her to try fighting. She asked who she was supposed to fight and whether she had to find a skeleton soldier. He simply told her to look behind her. Confused, she asked what he meant. When she turned around, she saw a gigantic bear right in front of her, roaring in rage and ready to attack. She screamed for her brother, asking if he was serious and whether he really expected her to fight that thing alone. 3 minutes later, she finally defeated the giant bear. Exhausted, she said this was insane, but also incredible. He asked if she believed in him now. She answered yes, completely. She then pointed out that it dropped a blue gem. He had just earned 5 million WS with his strength. If she handed it over to the Union, she would receive 100,000 incentive. But now she was no longer affiliated with anyone. It was just the two of them, and whatever they earned belonged only to them. He said he would level her up to level 45 in the dark fields. She agreed. Now, inside the Black Desert, they were chased by several black bulls charging toward him. Ahead of him, his sister began channeling her magic and shouted as she unleashed lightning. A massive bolt of lightning crashed down on the bulls. In this way, she hunted several black bulls.
She was extremely excited, while he praised her for doing a good job and said blue gems were raining down. She calculated that they had gained a total of 18 blue gems, worth 90 million ons. She joked that at this rate she could even open a hamburger shop. However, he wondered why that black monster hadn't appeared yet. This area wasn't as popular as it used to be, and there were only a few people. Suddenly, a player appeared behind him, shouting, "The max-level chaotic player should die." He commented that there were still maniacs who kept showing up. Activating lightning, he finished the attacker. He told his sister that if any item dropped, she could keep it. She said something did drop, but asked if that would consider be stealing. He replied that everyone was saying he was a low-level max chaotic. They wouldn't attack them, but they would deal with anyone who attacked first. They would welcome anyone foolish enough to do so. However, from what he could see, more people were coming. Soon, a group arrived, including several Kinites. His sister said there seemed to be a high-level player among them. Even without seeing him clearly, she could tell he was at least level 50, and he had brought many people with him. She asked if that meant they had come only to kill him. He answered yes. She told him they should run immediately, but he said it was already too late. The system displayed a message stating that he could not leave the PvP zone until it ends. Alarmed, she said they were doomed. He used Whisper to communicate with her and told her to take a few steps back so it wouldn't look like they were together. He asked how many people were needed to fight a single man like him, and whether he had not said they would not die as long as they didn't attack him. A Kinite in the center spoke up, saying it was his turn, and all they had to do was give him space and not forget the plan. That man was the Union Executive Director, Din K. At that moment, the mage beside him activated a binding spell.